Quinyon Mitchell at 22 is the steal of the draft, right? You heard anybody. I mean, you listen to Micah Parsons, draft pundits, whoever. Quinyon Mitchell was a top 15 player on everybody's board.
And then they get Cooper Dejean, another corner in round 2, a guy who thought he was going to be in round 1, expected to be in round 1. And
it's unbelievable. The best built team in football just got better, and it's unreal what they're doing.
You know, you guys, I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into the Philadelphia Eagles at this point because this team, man, is already putting together a great draft, and that guy, Howie Roseman, is doing his thing once again. He's not only gotten great value at extremely great positions of need, but he's also made moves to go get them, which just shows that the Eagles are once again all in to going all the way, which is obviously a good sign. They had some big needs heading into the draft, and people were wondering whether they'd be able to fill them or not, and I'm going to tell you right now, with what they've done so far, I think they've done just that. And if they can continue on this track, this team is going to be, once again, one of the scariest teams to play against in the entire NFL. But before we get into why I believe that, if you like Eagles content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Philadelphia Eagles videos for the remainder of the offseason. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Philadelphia Eagles, this team, of course, is coming off an extremely disappointing season where they did find a way in the playoffs, but they, of course, lost in the first round to the Bucs. This was something that no one expected to happen coming into last year, which made the outcome even more disappointing, and if we're going to be completely honest, the main reason for their downfall was their defense. The Eagles lost a few players in last year's offseason, but people thought they were going to be able to make up for it, and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal, but everyone that said that ended up being wrong because this defense ended the season as one of the worst in the entire league. I mean, they couldn't stop anybody. It didn't matter who it was, and that obviously came back to haunt them in the playoffs. They didn't do a great job against the run, but most importantly, they couldn't stop anything to do with a passing attack at all if they didn't get pressure on the quarterback, and that allowed for almost every team to be able to put up 300 or 400-yard passing games. So coming into this offseason, we knew they needed to upgrade at the linebacker position and in the secondary, and man, have they done exactly that. The first thing they went and did was before the draft when they went out and got Gardner Johnson, who, as we all know now, is one of the best ball hawk safeties in the NFL, so to bring him back is a huge addition, and it's going to add to an already safety room that I like a lot with Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown. But even with that addition, they still needed to add a lot more if they wanted to feel comfortable. So coming into the draft, everyone knew they were going to take something to do with the secondary, and they did that, and they honestly overexceeded what I thought they were going to do. In the first round, as we know, not many defensive players got drafted early on, which left the Eagles with an opportunity to draft one of the best corners in this draft class in Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell, if you didn't know, comes out of Toledo, and he doesn't only have great size to be able to play the boundary corner position, but he also is one of the most athletic corners that we've ever seen. I mean, to be 6 foot tall and still be able to run a 4.3 340 at the cornerback position is absolutely incredible, and he's going to add a lot of juice to this secondary that is getting a little bit older. I expect him to no doubt come in and play week 1 and play pretty good with all things considered, and it's going to allow the Eagles to not have to put James Bradberry on the field as much with him starting to regress. The only thing I could see people having against him is maybe that he's a bit of a gambler, so he's going to try to go for those interceptions, so sometimes he might get beat over the top, but I like gambling cornerbacks because interceptions can completely change the outcome of a game, and I would never stop a corner from being aggressive. Now, after this pick, I was like, all right, they got their corner that they wanted. He's going to help out a ton. But what I didn't expect to happen was them be able to get another elite corner to pair with Quinyon Mitchell, because I just didn't see one falling to the second round. But man, oh man, did one fall, and did the Eagles find a way to get it. Howie Roseman, like I said earlier on in the video, is not scared to make moves, and he showed us that once again by trading up to the 40th overall pick to draft that guy, Cooper Dejean. Cooper Dejean is a guy that came into this draft process as one of the best corners in college football, and most people expected him to be a first-round pick, so to be able to get him in the second round is absolutely unreal value. He's another guy that's pretty big at 6'1", 207, so if you want him to, he could play boundary corner, or if you want to move him to the safety position, he could also do that as well. He's an extremely good tackler, and he's good at coming downhill and making plays, and on top of that, he's really good at making plays on the ball as well, because if you go back to his 2022 season, he was able to record 5 5 interceptions, with 3 of them being pick sixes, which just shows how talented of a player he really is. I honestly just can't believe the Eagles were able to get this guy in the second round, because he is going to come in and he's also going to be a guy that makes a huge impact on day one. And the fact you were able to make a secondary this much better in just 2 rounds of the draft is just unbelievable. I think this makes the Eagles secondary go from one of the worst secondaries in the NFL to one of the best secondaries in the NFL, considering you still have Darius Slay, who can play at an extremely high level. You have CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's going to be able to play really good at safety as well. And now you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper Dejean, who are both really good corner prospects to go along with all that. This is exactly what the Eagles needed to do, because when you pair a good secondary with a pass rush like the Eagles have, you're going to give offenses a lot of trouble, and that's exactly what I expect to happen. When you go out and you get a guy in Bryce Huff to pair with a guy in Montez Sweat, and you also have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, you can expect this pass rush to be extremely good, especially with Vic Fangio coming in to implement some good pass rush schemes. He's going to make this defensive line play above their talent level, and that's going to make them one of the best teams at getting pressure to go along with this secondary that is now elite, in my opinion. This gives Vic Fangio exactly what he wants to work with, and when you give Vic Fangio a decent amount of talent, he's going to put together a really solid defense, and I think that's exactly what we're going to see happen, especially with the addition of Devin White at linebacker and the drafting of Jalens Hunt in the 3rd round, who's another linebacker that I like a lot. He's a guy that you didn't hear a ton of people talk about, but he is extremely athletic, and he plays with his head on fire, and he's willing to run around and make tackles all around the field, which is exactly what this Eagles team needs added to their defense. So, I mean, man, I don't know exactly what to tell you. I think this defense, with what they've drafted so far, is going to be extremely good. And when you pair that with an offense like the Eagles have already built, this team is going to be able to contend just like they did in the 2022 season. I mean, they already have their franchise quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who I know didn't have a great season last year, but I'm pretty sure everyone expects him, with a new offensive coordinator, to be able to come out and probably play really good football once again. And then on top of that, you have an offense that's loaded with talent all over it, and you've just added Saquon Barkley to it. You have the true number 1 receiver in A.J. Brown. You have Devonta Smith, who's probably the best receiver 2 in the entire NFL. You have an elite receiving threat at tight end in Dallas Goedert. And then you also went out and added Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker to give you even more weapons to work with, which just makes me even more confident in this offense easily being in the top 10, if not the top 5 range. I think people are way undervaluing what Kellen Moore brings to the table as an offensive mind, because I think he really is going to come in and transform this Eagles offense from being stale and boring to one of the more creative units in the league, and it's going to make them a lot better because of it. And man, if this Eagles offense is anywhere near the top 5 level, I'm also extremely confident after this draft that defense is going to be able to match their productivity, which means, like I said, they're going to be able to contend.